Hey guys, it's Cindy Bell, your realtor in Central Texas real estate advisor. And today I'm speaking about something that everybody can get behind, and that's water. Like, everybody needs water, and it comes up more than you think in real estate. I have conversations with developers, I have conversations with buyers and sellers about, where does the water come from in Texas, right? So I'm going to dive a little bit deeper than normal on what are the biggest drivers in Texas with regards to real estate values. And everybody thinks it's interest rates, everybody thinks it's inventory or even migration, but it's really water, or actually where water's at, right? I was reading an article that's put out by the Texas Real Estate Research Center at the Texas A&M University. They have a really great real estate school, and they put out a magazine and do really great deep dives into Texas real estate and land and development. So in that article that I read, Texans, right, us, are using 16 billion gallons of water every single day. That's a lot of water. And that constitutes about just over 11 million households, almost 700,000 businesses, over 200,000 farms, and over 5,000 governmental entities. Right? That's a lot of people. And we are still seeing inbound migration from U.S. domestically and even international, right? So we're having still inbound migration. So we're still growing. So if you're a homeowner in Central Texas, right, so you live in Hills, Cedar Park, Leander, Georgetown, Austin, all of these Central Texas places, are we running out of water? And I'd say no, we're not. But are we running out of affordable water? That's a bigger question, right? So what I kind of want to prep and set the tone for this particular video is a phrase that I heard more than once when I go to economic updates for real estate professionals is whiskey's for drinking and water's for fighting over. That's an old Texas thing, you hear that over and over again. So Texas isn't running out of water, but Texas is running out of cheap water. So where this comes into play with real estate is because it's just not about just growth, with no thought. It's where we're going to put the roads, where the school's going to go, what kind of zoning we're going to have, and what kind of land availability, right? And now the growth is tied to how expensive is it going to become to source and deliver water to these new communities, right? So, the buzzword that you hear on TV, housing affordability. Land costs money. It doesn't come out of a vacuum. Land is expensive. Getting the water to where it's at, to where it needs to be, isn't cheap. It's just not. And that's driving up costs of development. So if it costs more to develop that land, to get the water there, to get the rights to the water there, to build that house, that makes, it costs this much to get the land ready and it costs this much to build the house, you still are having to foot the cost of all of that development to get the water to where it needs to go. So that's infrastructure. So the cost of water and getting it where it goes is the infrastructure, and how is that cost is per plot or per business or per farm is how it translates into is it going to be cheap or is it going to be expensive? So why does this matter to the Austin Metro? So zooming in just locally, Texas rainfall, we are always in a drought in Central Texas. We just are, all right? But as you move to the east, so if you kind of just take a look at the I-35 as a spine running down Texas, go east, you have more surface water. So think lakes, think reservoirs, right? Surface water. You have more surface water to the east. Central Texas, Austin, think Austin, San Antonio, Central, we have mixed, right? And then you go out to West Texas, so west of Austin, it's going to be ground dependent, meaning it's going to be, you have to drill a well to get down to it because there's no surface water. right? So we have a mix of what that looks like in Texas. So most of the state's surface water production happens in the wetter eastern third of Texas, right? But guess where the growth is happening? It's happening in Central Texas. It's happening in the Austin metro. It's happening in the North Austin corridor. It's happening in Georgetown. It's happening in Liberty Hill. It's happening in Georgetown and in Leander. So that means that we're the fastest growing area, and we don't necessarily have easy access to renewable surface water like, say, East Texas. So that's a planning issue. That's a cost issue. How are you going to get the water maybe from East Texas, or how are we going to create the infrastructure to get the water wherever it's at in Texas to here economically? And are the people that's there going to give up their water rights to us? Meaning to move the water across a large area of space to get it to where it needs to go. So the shift in water demand, something most people don't realize, right now the largest water user in Texas is agricultural irrigation. That's the largest consumer of water in Texas. But that's going to change here come 2070. Municipal water use, meaning homes, businesses, apartments, offices, hospitals, are expecting to grow from 5.2 million acres in 2020 to 8.5 million acres of feet. That's a lot. At the same time, agricultural irrigation is expected to fall from 9.4 million to 7.6 million. So basically the water demand is shifting from farms to cities. And what builds cities? Housing. So if you don't have housing, you don't have cities. That's the way it works. So actually you need businesses, and you need houses, and then you've got the city. So for single family homes, use the most. So single family residence homes are the largest user, accounting for the biggest share of municipal supply in Texas. Residential consumption makes alone up about 58% of the municipal water usage statewide. So when developers are planning a master plan community, a new subdivision, apartment complexes, any kind of neighborhood where you're going to have people living, they're not just asking, do we have land? You know, we have plenty of land in Texas. They're asking, do we have the water rights, and what's going to cost to get access to them? And is it enough to supply the development that we're wanting to put on the ground here? So that kind of ties back to the infrastructure problem that we have just generally, right? So this becomes a serious issue for real estate. Water infrastructure needs are estimated to exceed, it's a big number, 150 billion statewide. That includes reservoirs, pipelines, treatment plants, aquifer storage, leak mitigation, recycling systems, and that cost has to come from somewhere. And typically it shows up in mud taxes, impact fees, utility bonds, higher municipality tax rates, development restrictions. So when buyers come to me and I say this is like a 3% tax rate, you're paying for water, right? Because most tax rates here in the Central Texas areas are hovering about 2%. Some are higher, some are lower, but as that tax rate goes up, you're paying for mud taxes. You're paying for utility bonds. You're paying for the ability to get that water to that development, which ultimately affects builder pricing. It affects resale values and long-term affordability, because your tax bill is something that's going to happen every month. That's going to be due every year, even if you pay off the house, right? So that doesn't go away. So what we saw with the Texas legislature, they saw this challenge out there with developers and costs that were being passed down to their constituents. So because of this, the Texas legislature has already stepped in. And House Joint Resolution 7 gave $1 billion per year from 2027 to 2047. That's a lot. $20 billion in dedicated securing water future supply through repairing aging systems and developing new water sources. This is statewide. This is just not Austin, but there's developing new water sources. And that's the one long-term infrastructure commitment in the state's history. 20 years, 20 billion. And again, the infrastructure planning drives where growth happens, where it doesn't, and how expensive it becomes to build. So how does this translate into the economic development impact? In fact, where water availability is now being cited as a core economic development constraint. I don't know if you've seen the news here in Central Texas, but there are smaller cities, I would say not outside of Austin. I've seen it in Hays County. I've seen it out in other counties where cities are like, we can't supply the water. We don't have the water to supply this new home development. The new home development was approved maybe a couple of years ago, and now they're coming online to build, and there's not enough water. So you do see that on the news, and you do see that where there's these constraints of getting the water where it needs to go and keeping current users of the water system with intact water. So there is the rub that you're seeing on the TV. That's where the rub is at. And you're also seeing, some feedback from constituents and from the public about, semiconductor plants, AI server campuses, data centers, and all of these very tech-heavy industries and their impact on water. So all industries are actively trying to attract into the Austin-San Antonio corridor. If water becomes more scarce and expensive, they just don't locate here. That's the bottom line. So the governmental entities and developers are going to have to figure out how to get the water where it needs to be and keep the cost down. And that's where you have the Prop 7 that helps drive down some of that cost with getting some reimbursement from the state. So what does this mean for homeowners? So here's a bottom line, if you will. Texas isn't going to stop growing. We're just not. But growth will be increasingly follow the water, right? So areas that have secured supply, have infrastructure funding, have aquifer recharge capacity, or have surface reservoir access are likely to grow faster, build more, maintain more affordability, and attract employers. While areas without those advantages may see developmental caps, higher taxes, rising utility costs, and slower builder activity, right? And it just makes logical sense. If you can't develop and deliver utilities at a rate at what people can afford, why put the rooftops there? Why have the businesses there? Doesn't make any sense. So the local takeaway. So, which is why when we talk about the areas that I serve, Liberty Hill, Georgetown, Leander, Round Rock, Cedar Park, we're just not looking at price per square foot and school ratings or the commute time. We're looking at long-term water planning. Or that's what you should be looking for, right? So when you're partnered with a real estate agent and you're looking to work, live, and purchase here in Central Texas, those are all good questions to ask of your real estate agent about, what is this municipality doing about water restrictions? What are they doing about water supply? Where do they get the water? How is it going to be replenished? What does their water strategic plan look like over the next 30 or 40 years? That's where a local expert of a real estate agent would be able to get those information for you. And that's what's the key of hiring a real estate professional. So if you own property in Central Texas, or you're thinking about buying here or even selling here, understanding the infrastructure investment that's going on is going to matter even more in the next 10 to 20 years. If you would like a market review in your specific area, or want to talk about future growth, or what's most likely going to occur in your area based on development and planning, you can always reach out at any time, and I'd be happy to have that discussion one-on-one. And otherwise, I'll catch you on the next video, and you know where to find me.